This is the biggest mistake that you'll make when it comes to magnesium. And we'll talk about what kinds as we progress, but what you absolutely must have to be operating here. Kicking ass in life, aging slow, the body that you want, instead of suboptimal or God forbid, down here where I was close to 8 years ago. You want magnesium inside the cell where it does work. If it's not in the cell, you're going to be suboptimal. So here's the problem with the medical system. They'll check your serum blood levels of magnesium, and that equates to just about 1%. Now, if it's depleted in the cell where you need it, guess what? Stress hormones go up and it extracts it out of the bone. And while this is happening, you feel like shit. And that also lowers your testosterone and converts what little T you got left through aromatization into estrogen. And it starts to inhibit your gut from repairing and regenerating itself, including the tight junctions. So you don't want to be in that situation. So I'm going to give you the 6 reasons here today and what you need to do. Now, I can tell you that if your magnesium isn't in the cell, NAD plus here will be suboptimal, and that's your energy, and that's triggering your longevity genes to keep you healthy for a very long time and increase your health span. And also slow down aging, the skin, the cells everywhere. Now, if you want to detox yourself, you want to repair and rebuild, and also have a powerful antioxidant system, you also need NADPH in the up position. So we're going to tie this all together. Now, what I'm going to recommend towards the end is one of these tests, and this is showing you inside the cell what's fucking going on. Now, the dudes that we're helping to get their results really quickly, they don't have a lot of symptoms. We very rarely need to do these tests here. Now, the other guys that we work with that are kind of older, their T's not where it needs to be. They got skin issues, joint issues, gut issues. They've got a lot of symptoms, and this is generally what we see. All of these critical, mission critical micronutrients aren't in the cell, so your cell can't do work. So think about that. It's basically like having no repair crew inside your cells to do work, to build muscle, to make neurotransmitters, to boost your testosterone. And that's free T that you want to optimize for. So we're going to talk about all these coming through here. And, cobalt here, that's a representation of B12. And that's your methylation. So if B12 is low, like you see here, you're going to have fatigue, poor focus, low testosterone, and your methylation will be blocked. Your homocysteine will go up. And that is exactly what I saw with this gentleman that we're helping. So the way you want to think through this, if you want, to feel fucking good, to have energy, your hormones are popping, the V8 engine all tuned up, you don't want to guess. You need to measure. You need to measure correctly. As I said at the beginning of this, serum is absolute shit. And the red cell check, which I'll show you how to do towards the end, that's the game right there. So in a nutshell, what we've got to do is just think about inside our fucking body. We want to ensure it. We want to wax the outside. We want to clean the inside. We want to look after it. So if you're like me, you like V8s and you want to slap a fucking supercharger on that son of a bitch, that's what we've got to do. If we want really good performance, we've got to do the work. So right here, here's some of the actions of just magnesium. And we're going to talk about how to fix those issues. That's the steps there. Now, as I mentioned, magnesium, only 1% in the serum, bone and tissues. Then all potassium here. And there's our first clue. About 2% in the serum, and the rest is intracellular. So let's start our journey. So here is some of the symptoms of just low magnesium. And we're talking about all of the microminerals. And we're going to optimize them here today. So, arrhythmias, palpitations, high blood pressure, oxidative stress in your heart. Doesn't sound fucking helpful, does it? and your hormones. So we're talking about your metabolism slowing the fuck down, testosterone, thyroid. Then you got hyperinsulinemia, you got glucose dysregulation. Then, as I mentioned there, your detox, your redox potential. So we need NAD plus in the up position to burn body fat, produce really good energy, and then to trigger longevity genes. So we age slower and we get to 80, 90, or even 100, and we feel good doing it. And then if you want to rebuild yourself, antioxidant system, build muscle, repair shit, detox, NADPH in the up position. And over here, when it comes to muscle, so you could be a bit stiff and aching in your muscle, cramps, very slow recovery, and rapid fatigue when you do a bit of exercise. And then you can also have what's called mitochondrial uncoupling. So what happens is when they uncouple, you've got a reverse electron transfer, and that ain't fun. You can even overheat while you're eating. And over here, anxiety and aggression for that matter, and being frustrated like I used to be, insomnia, man. Like you can wake up because your body's producing stress hormones to go hunting for things like magnesium, and then irritability and even things like, ear issues. So this is just magnesium. We're going to cover them all here today. So this is what's called mitochondrial uncoupling. And as you can see here, we've got, well, magnesium is low anyway, but we've got copper that's pretty low. And we'll talk about the rest of them as we progress. Now, this is the electron transport chain where you ultimately produce the ATP inside your cells, currency of the cell there. So copper is needed here. So it's going to go through very slowly and it can uncouple. Then you've got what's called here reverse electron transport. So they're actually going backwards and they're going here and causing a lot of reactive oxygen species. They uncouple, result, fatigue, swelling, brain fog, all of that shit. And you can even overheat a little bit, maybe get a hot flush. Now this here, I'll touch on this towards the end, but this is what's called an organic acid test. And you can see here succinyl acid is low, and that's a complex 2 there. So it's going to fucking bottleneck there. And every time this dude eats food or tries to put his foot down the gas pedal to exercise, or even to think for that matter, it's going to be tough because it's going to have that reverse electron transfer. Now, the big problem when you got all these issues, and you know who you are if you're that guy, like you might be younger now and you're not doing too bad, but you could be heading in that direction 5, 10, 15 years from now. But eventually, your cells are just deplete of these mission critical minerals and microminerals. So cortisol and adrenaline activate because the hypothalamus can only check the serum. If it's low, boom, it goes hunting for these minerals to get back to homeostatic balance. Now, the big issue, and this has happened all the time, think about your day. Look back over your day. Have you had energy crashes? Bit of brain fog here and there. Well, that is a stress response, my friends, and that ain't good. Now, this is Dr. Daddis. He's got more letters after his name than I care to count. PhD, DHSC, MS, FACN, highly educated. And he's just talking about the issues with repairing your gut when your stress hormones are up. And paradoxically, down come your V8 hormones. So listen carefully to this, legend.
Chronic stress responses, more cortisol levels go up. That can really promote intestinal permeability. Any type of, and this is a diagram where we get into stress responses. So whether it's chemical stress, physical stress, you activate the stress response. The activation of the stress response really leads to decreased blood flow to the gut, an inability to regenerate intestinal cells, suppress intestinal immunity, a main immunoglobulin gut called secretory IgA goes down, and those things start to promote leaky gut. So stress is a big factor. Hormonal issues, thyroid, progesterone, estrogen, testosterone, those all have an impact on slowing down the regeneration of gut healing. So significant hormone insufficiencies can make it harder to heal a leaky gut. So when someone has hypothyroidism or estrogen deficiency or testosterone deficiency, progesterone deficiency, if they don't have those hormones, they may not be able to dampen the inflammatory response to their gut. Hormones are really critical for damping inflammation in the gut, and they also are important for regenerating the intestinal lining.
Yeah, the paradox there is that when the stress hormones are up, your T is going to be low. And what little testosterone you have left, aromatized into E, you feel like shit. You get very irritable. So as you can see there, we certainly want to make sure that the minerals are in the cell, the electrolytes and the micro minerals to do work for you, rebuilding, repairing, detoxing, making V8 fucking hormones. So you put your foot down the gas pedal and you crush it. That's the point. So just to show you right here, we'll just quickly talk about homocysteine. This is definitely a lab you should get checked, and it should be between 5 and at a max 8. So when it's over that, you got some work to do because this isn't working. So this is a whole pathway that's turning inside your body, and most of methylation, I think it's about 85%, is done in the fucking liver. So the liver is absolutely huge. So if your liver's a bit sick, your enzymes are up, then you got some work to do for sure because you're not detoxing. So if you're lacking potassium, ATP, and magnesium, then down comes methylation, up goes homocysteine. So what are the implications when homocysteine is up? Well, when your homocysteine is up, legend, you're also going to have issues with blood sugar, and it's going to damage the energy producing mitochondria in all of your cells right there. Now, another thing that happens when homocysteine is up, this system powers down. So NADPH oxidase is upregulated, which oxidizes NADPH, so you can't use it. It's got to be in a reduced form. And then you've also got eNOS uncoupling. So there goes your nitric oxide, your blood pressure goes up. And yeah, downstairs, you're not producing testosterone. And also your erections, they're going to be kind of piss poor, to say the least. Then over here, the master antioxidant is going to be going down. And then B12, that's a non-enzymatic antioxidant. Let me just show you this here. So when it comes to B12, right there, and I'll talk about this towards the end, legend, it's doing all of these. Immunomodulation, huge. Abolishing cancer cells, so it's getting rid of those. It's just doing a lot of heavy lifting. You know, B9 over here comes in and plays into the same place, so I'm going to talk about that towards the end. So when your homocysteine is up, we're in trouble because it's going to lower nitric oxide, destroy the mitochondria. Now, every 2 hours, your gonadotropins make LH and FSH. Fertility, FSH. LH for testosterone, again, every 2 hours. So LH binds to the ball sack, your testy, and it comes down this energy pathway here. So the mitochondria are producing the ATP necessary for that. So if you feel a bit fatigued, brain fog, gut issues, joint issues, you're not going to be making a lot of man juice. Your mitochondria, they're tapping. And this is the nitric oxide pathway and the glycocalyx pathway. And I'll talk about that as we progress. They converge through these protein kinases, which triggers this star protein here. So you also need very healthy endoplasmic reticulum. I'll talk about that too. So old cholesterol comes into the mitochondria, enzymatically converted into pregnenolone, exported out through the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. So if it is stressed, you're not making a lot of testosterone. And I'll talk about more about how you lower endoplasmic reticulum stress as we progress. So every 2 hours, boom, you're making your free T. And that's what you want to optimize for. Like serum, that's great. But your free T, boom, that is what we want to optimize for. So in a nutshell there, that's step 4. Step 1. Now the big caveat. If you have kidney damage, do not, I repeat, do not try this. You need to make sure your kidneys aren't damaged. You see, the first step in putting magnesium into the cell where it actually does work for you, like make your testosterone, detox, everything that we're talking about. Magnesium and potassium flow together through shared gradients. So if potassium is low, intracellular magnesium entry slows to a crawl or even reverses and comes out. So we got to make sure you got optimal potassium. But again, if you've got kidney issues, and we'll talk about that next, do not fucking try this. This is just a dumb idea if you've got kidney damage. So, right here, what's going to damage your kidneys? Insulin and high blood glucose. So, another test that you should get is what's called fasting insulin, ideally between 2 and 5. And when it's north of 8, that's no good, especially when it's like 15 and higher. That's really bad. So, you've definitely got some issues there you need to correct. So when you've got these issues going on, renal, which means kidney, you got decreased ATP. So you need ATP to also transport magnesium into the cell through sodium and potassium channels. It needs ATP to open up to let it in. And then your longevity genes like NRF2, they're powered down. And then your mitochondria become damaged, the energy producing cells. And then over here, another pathway called SIRT3, that's down regulated. Then you've got increased protein acetylation. So acetylation means you've got tags on your proteins, which isn't a good thing. You've got too many tags on your proteins. And then you've got a lot of oxidative stress and inflammation playing out in your kidneys right there. So this is well documented in peer-reviewed studies. When you've got too much insulin, they call it insulin resistance. I think of it as just hyperinsulinemia. So when you're fasting insulin checked, if it's north of 8, we got some work to do. I'll talk about how to fix that today. But as you can see here, insulin can increase blood pressure, which is going to screw you up, heart disease, through several mechanisms of action. So sodium at the kidneys, reabsorption, activation of the stress response, so you feel like shit. And then you've also got alterations in transport and transmembrane potential, so you can't really put magnesium into the cells. Then you get hypertrophy of the blood vessels. So instead of having blood vessels where the blood flows really well, hypertrophy, they just get enlarged and you got less room for the blood to flow. So yeah, you really want to fix that issue. Now, when it comes to insulin, if it's north, too high, it's going to shut down the gonadotropins, LH, testosterone, FSH, every 2 hours. And you'll also have too much estrogen shutting you the fuck down. You'll have inflammation shutting you down. Your leptin will be shit, so you'll have cravings. Your stress hormones will be up, and you'll just, you can see what's going on there. Your T is going to be low. You're going to be feeling like shit, spinning your wheels. So the cool news is, as I mentioned earlier there, gonadotropin's released every 2 hours. But as you can see here, this is intracellular levels. And if that is you, it's just not going to happen. So your fertility tanks, your testosterone tanks, and you become estrogen dominant. So we're going to start talking about the solutions very shortly. So the first solution, as I mentioned there, is potassium at the right levels. Now here, again, hyperinsulinemia. That's the big issue. So problem number one over here, vitamin D. Instead of actually having it do really important work in your body, and we all know how important vitamin D is, it's actually been upregulated to go into your adipocytes, fat cells. So it's been stored for a rainy day. Now over here, number two, your iron gets all over the place. Now your iron does redox, so that's really important for mitochondrial function, but also the P450 enzymes to make testosterone and also to detox in the liver. Number three here, as you can see, your NAD plus will tank, so you can't trigger your longevity genes. And then these super important enzymes inside the mitochondria tank and your glutathione tanks. Number four over here, thick, sludgy blood. Number five, sulfur. Sulfation goes down. And that's a really bad thing, and I'll talk about that shortly. And number six up here, glycation. So what does glycation mean? Boom. You're aging faster. Glycation, advanced glycation end product. So that's what it looks like when we don't want to age like that, do we? We want to age like fine wine. But the most insidious thing that happens is that you lose your telomeres, your base pairs. So when you get to, say, 70 years of age, instead of having a lot more than 4,000 left, base pairs and your telomeres, you don't have much left. So you look old, you feel old, your money maker doesn't work properly, and unfortunately, you don't have a lot of life left to live. Now, the cool thing is you can trigger telomerase to actually lengthen your base pairs and give you more base pairs. So you can reverse that. So that's the exciting news. So never panic about this stuff. Now, as I mentioned here, you got this enzyme here, and it needs manganese. So let's unpack that. So inside your mitochondria, manganese, you can see here it's low. Manganese binds to superoxide dismutase to make it worse. Make it fucking work. So when you breathe, you produce superoxide, and it goes through here and turns into harmless old water. So if that's down-regulated, your mitochondria start tapping out. Now, the unfortunate truth for a lot of people, and this I learned this from the grandfather of mitochondrial research. So every 10 years, for most people, unfortunately, their mitochondria goes through 10% heteroplasmic. So what does that mean? Boom. Mitochondrial DNA and disease. So your moneymaker, headaches and migraines, ataxia, and that's what it looks like there in a PET scan. And that's a now typical 82-year-old brain. Terrible. Then depression, psychosis, dementia, stroke, cardiomyopathy, heart attack. Over here, hormones. We're talking testosterone, thyroid. Then your kidneys. So you can see how important that is. And that also plays into heart disease. Why? Because your blood pressure is up. Then myopathy. So you got weak, tired, aching muscles, and you think you need a massage or whatever, and you're pretty weak at the gym. And then, of course, neuropathy. So you can get numbness in your extremities, sciatica, carpal tunnel, liver issues, gut issues, hearing, and eyesight there. So you don't want to be low on manganese, clearly. And then this one here, superoxide dismutase 1, needs copper and zinc. So this gentleman that I'm helping here, he's low in copper, and he's low in zinc, and he's low in manganese. So his mitochondria are being fucking crushed. And he's moving towards this. So, like, the point I'm trying to make here, what you don't test, you don't know. And unfortunately, the medical system just checks your serum. And that's not enough. It's not enough data. It's got to be in the cell doing work inside the fucking mitochondria. Now, here we go. This is the manganese issue. So manganese SOD. So all of this, manganese superoxide dismutase, plaque in your arteries, cardiomyopathy, kidneys, skin issues, gut issues, autoimmune disease, arthritis, fatty liver, insulin, pancreas, diabetes. And then your glycocalyx taps out, and we'll talk about that next. Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, all of those brain-related diseases when your mitochondria are tapping out. And it could be because you got low intracellular manganese, just that one thing alone. So why wouldn't you want to know? Just think of yourself as this high-performance V8 machine. Now, why wouldn't you want to get it tested? That's the question you need to start thinking about. You really need to think about testing yourself. So let's segue into now the blood flow. So where your blood flows, you got this protective shield called the glycocalyx. And you see here how molybdenum's low? Well, that's going to screw up your glycocalyx. So the way you want to think about your glycocalyx is that it's a protective shield of where the blood flows in your kidneys, your heart, your liver, your ball sack, your eyes, your brain, your skin, your joints, everywhere. So when it's damaged over here, cracks open up. So I'll just move this over there. So these cracks open up. And the body's response to these cracks, when your glycocalyx is kind of tapping out, is foam to build up, atherosclerosis, and you see that there. So you got reduced blood flow. So as you can see there, when you got insulin resistance, you got poor sulfation, so you can't sulfate the glycosamic glycans in the glycocalyx. And that is what's actually happening inside your vascular system. So you really don't want that to happen, clearly. Now, this is the endothelial cell that is, so your glycocalyx is up here on top of the endothelial cells. So when you need mitochondria in there to be doing work inside your endothelial cells. And it's also helping repopulate the glycocalyx. So as you can see here, when she's a tapping out, plaque in your arteries, heart disease, your eyes, your brain, all systems are affected there. Now, the biggest issue that you've also got when your insulin is a bit too high is that it shuts down cellular cleansing, autophagy, and it also causes endoplasmic reticulum stress. So apoptosis of shitty cells, we absolutely need that to happen. Now, when your insulin is too high, we're slowing down and shutting down autophagy. So when that's happening, you got these misfolded proteins inside the endoplasmic reticulum. So they're coming out and they don't work properly, and they can be turned into a transporter protein for magnesium. And they're making collagen. They're doing a lot of important things. So as you can see here, misfolded protein aggregation just in the brain, but it's all organ systems, your vascular system, your ball sac, your liver, your kidneys, your eyes, everywhere. Pathogenic pathways in neurodegeneration and mental disorders. So you want to make sure you get your fasting insulin checked, and it needs to be between 2 and 5, and no more than 8. And if it is 8, you need to work it to get back to 2 and 5. We'll talk about that towards the end there. But as you can see there, these misfolded proteins, you see that there, eventually, like you clean here, they start to accrue, these misfolded fucking proteins, they start to accrue. Your moneymaker doesn't work too well. Brain fog, headaches, and all of that shit. Now, right here, the way you want to think through this is that when you're young, and this is what we want, I mean, you can mimic this. You've got low misfolded protein burden, you got low endoplasmic reticulum stress, and you got increased stress tolerance, emotional stress, physical stress, and metabolic stress. Now, as these proteins aren't getting cleared out, and also toxic fats like too many ceramides, that ain't a good thing. So you got more of these misfolded proteins coming out of the endoplasmic reticulum. So you got a big burden that you can't get rid of when your insulin is too high, endoplasmic reticulum stress, and your stress tolerance goes way down for everything. So another big issue that you could have is thyroid issues. And I'm not going to drive into that today. It's kind of out of the scope, but it can also play into heart disease, blood pressure, heart failure, and it also can cause hyperinsulinemia. So thyroid is pretty important as well. Now, step 2 is all about the mitochondria, so restoring ATP. So the first step, as I mentioned there, is all about potassium and magnesium. Basically, potassium and magnesium help the gradient so that magnesium can actually go into the cell and do work. So that's step number 1. The next one is you've got your sodium and potassium pump that need ATP to bring in magnesium into the cell. So you need healthy, strong mitochondria. Now, again, if your manganese is low, you're going to have mitochondrial stress, as we've just talked about, and you'll also have endoplasmic reticulum fatigue. So the interesting thing about the mitochondria and the endoplasmic reticulum, they've got crosstalk. They're always talking to one another. So when the mitochondria is shit and your insulin goes up, it's just a metabolic disaster. And as I mentioned there earlier, you could be this dude with low copper and zinc, so this one doesn't work properly. Then you got low manganese, so this one doesn't work properly. And the mitochondria just being absolutely crushed. Then you've got endoplasmic reticulum stress. So your glycocalyx can't renew itself. Think about that. The cracks open up, the plaque starts to build up, the blood flow is not very good, your money maker. You know, you got memory issues, you got brain fog, ADD-like symptoms, and this could be it. So the old mitochondria, as I've been speaking about here on the YouTubes for a long time, it's all about energy. So that's what they're doing. They're producing your ATP, and they're also a necessary step to make your neurotransmitters, your testosterone, repair RNA, DNA, and lipids. So your body fat goes into the mitochondria through a process called beta oxidation. Boom. you get lean. And it's also the food that you eat. And then protein synthesis here. And it's not just muscle proteins, right? The endoplasmic reticulum, the ER, that's making proteins. And it's estimated, I think, between 6,000 and 8,000 proteins that the endoplasmic reticulum are making, including collagen. Collagen is the most abundant protein in our body. And the mitochondria and the endoplasmic reticulum are doing that. If your manganese is out, the ER is going to be stressed, your mitochondria are going to be stressed. Just that one fucking thing alone. And it's just insane that the medical system don't test for this. So, in a nutshell, mitochondria are stressed, you'll have endoplasmic reticulum stress, you can't build muscle proteins, you can't build collagen, and that's a pretty nasty place to be. Now, when it comes to collagen, yeah, I was right. So the rough endoplasmic reticulum between 6,000 and 8,000 proteins, including collagen. Right, there's many different types of collagen. So they're in the eye, the heart, the blood vessel, your fat, your bone, the tendons, your skin. Like, think about your skin. Collagen and elastin. Also in your muscle, it's just absolutely everywhere. And your endoplasmic reticulum working alongside the mitochondria doing that. And if your manganese and your SOD2 isn't working, they're tapping out. Just that one thing alone. So you want to make sure that you're doing things right, especially if you want to thrive and look good. No wrinkles. You've got the muscle, you've got the body. Well into your 70s and 80s there. So the old collagen synthesis, the DNA is triggered. DNA is triggered here in the nucleus, comes out into the rough endoplasmic reticulum, and it's making your proteins. And collagen is just one. Skin, joints, cartilage, vascular system, heart health, your tendons, your fascia, liver, kidneys, heart, extracellular matrix. So it's also facilitating this epithelial gut repair, the blood-brain barrier, the lung barrier. As I mentioned again, the vascular system, the skin, the testes. So your testes got a barrier that the endoplasmic reticulum are protecting, your kidneys and bladder, because you don't want to end up like this, do we? Yeah. So there's a lot of collagen in the vascular system. So basically, legends, the point I'm trying to make here is that when your endoplasmic reticulum is stressed, your mitochondria are stressed, and in your heart here, DNA injury, lipid injury, and protein injury. And what's your heart? It's a cardiac muscle protein. Misfolded proteins in your heart. So we're going to get to the solutions very shortly. I just want to show you one more thing that relates to the mitochondria and, of course, the endoplasmic reticulum. So you got rough and smooth, and they both do pretty amazing things. I'm going to give you solutions here today. Now, another thing you can do is get what's called an organic acid test, and this is the fucking health of your mitochondria. Here's one we did recently there. So you'll note here I've got a red X, we've got pyruvic acid, and we've also got a red X here at succinate acid. So number one, we're bottlenecked here. Number two here. Number three here. Number four there. So how the fuck can you produce energy, testosterone, detox, do everything that the mitochondria need to do if that's the case? Now, just one of the deficiencies that this gentleman had, thiamine, B1. Now, let's go one step deeper and we'll just focus in succinic acid there. So in the electron transport chain where you ultimately produce your ATP over here, this is succinic right there. That's a protein. So when he's trying to make energy, goes in electron transport chain one there, and she's going to bottleneck there and really slow it down. And eventually, especially if you eat a bit too much food, it's going to have reverse electron transfer. So the electrons are going to go fucking backwards, and then your mitochondria uncouple, and you're going to feel like shit, and they're being destroyed. They're going through heteroplasmy. If you recall earlier, the granddaddy of mitochondrial research, Professor Doug Wallace, unfortunately for most people that don't pay attention to this, every 10 years, 10% heteroplasmy. So there's a lot of things you got to do to power up the mitochondria. And we're going to start unpacking that now. But suffice to say that, as you can see there, like B vitamins are everywhere, but let's just really go into this. Now, this is a book I purchased a while back, and it's just about thiamine B1. But what they did was they put this in that book, and just have a look. There's B vitamins and magnesium, potassium. You've got alpha lipoic acid, magnesium, magnesium. Can you see what's going on there? Now, if you don't have magnesium in the cell, selenium in the cell, potassium in the cell, what hope have we got? And a lot of people out there, they say to themselves, because this is what the system says. They say, as you age, you're on the decline. Now that's just absolute bullshit. If you replete your cells with everything that they need, the right inputs gives you the right outputs and the right outcome for life. And then when this isn't working, your longevity genes, they cannot be triggered. So you age like fine wine and get to 70, 80, and even 90. And you're doing pretty good. You can remember shit. Your body's still looking pretty sharp. You still got your strength. Now, to me, that's everything. Like, I want to live a pretty strong life. I've got 4 kids and a beautiful wife. And I'll be damned if this V8 machinery inside me is going to start tapping the fuck out. You'll be damn sure I'll be spending money on these tests to make sure that I'm tuning everything up. Because if you're not, like just manganese, it's out. Your mitochondria suffer. Endoplasmic reticulum, rough and smooth, they suffer. And your collagen, the main protein in your body, she comes down. And like here's just a smaller schematic of the TCA cycle, producing your energy. And as you can see here, alpha lipoic acid, suboptimal, glutathione, suboptimal, alpha lipoic, B12, like B12, it's huge. So let's just quickly look at the B vitamins and what they do. Now, this is just the immune effects, just the immune effects. And B1 is really important for sulfation. So you remember the glycocalyx? It needs to be sulfated. Well, if you don't have enough B1, that's suboptimal. So B1 protects and helps the power of the entire sulfation environment. Now, a lot of people are supplementing cheap ass vitamins out there, and we do things differently. Like, we don't recommend supplementation unless you need it as a last resort. You got to focus in on nutrient fucking dense foods. Like B6, there's a cheap synthetic one out there, and that can cause neuropathy. So when it comes to supplementation, that can be a big issue. Now, if you take a lot of B12 or maybe folate, it's methylated, and you've got what's called a slow COMT gene, there's too much methyl groups in your body, anxiety, irritability, lose your energy, and it just backfires on you. So you really want to get your nutrition from food. Now, here's just some of the micro minerals. Like, as I mentioned earlier, that dude, his zinc and his copper was low. So his mitochondria tapping out. And the immune system, right? The immune system is down. Viruses, infections. You know, your immune system is so huge. And over here, magnesium is part of modulating the immune system along with iron as well. Selenium, for that matter. And a lot of times I see high levels of selenium, and that's bad. So the first thing you need to do to get your mitochondria on point, and I just keep talking about this, and it is one of the most, it's the easiest thing to start to do. Your circadian rhythm, that's huge. Autophagy, those misfolded fucking proteins. So if your circadian rhythm isn't on point, that system starts to power down. And then mitochondrial dysfunction, like how important is the circadian rhythm? Then, of course, cellular senescence, you're losing your base pairs and your life expectancy goes down. Then you lose that in the power of melatonin. Now, melatonin is not just for sleep. It's it's the antioxidant that takes over at nighttime. So you get deep restorative sleep. So I've done videos all about that. So start a solution. So check your insulin, and if it's north of 8, well, say it's between 8 and 12, you don't have a lot of work to do. You can fix this pretty quickly. But when it's north of 15, especially north of 20, you've probably got some kidney issues, and you really need to work with someone that knows what they're doing. So let's just conceptualize it for a moment. Let's just say that every meal you have, you're slamming down the fucking carbs. That's what's pushing up your insulin. You're eating way too many carbs that is appropriate for you right now. So you're producing 100 units of insulin per day. So it's going up, it's coming down, it's going up, it's coming down. And what is also insidious about that, when insulin is up too high, it makes it difficult to tap into your fat. So you have your breakfast with carbs, then the carbs dissipate and go away, and then you can't tap into your body fat because it's like 10 or maybe 15 or 20. So you get cravings, you get fatigue, you get a bit shaky, you get a bit sweaty. So you go reaching for more carbs. So if that is you, you got to work with someone that knows how to fix this. So eventually you'll get this insulin load down to manageable levels, and you can tap into your body fat. So you can have your breakfast, and you can then, as everything starts to normalize, you can tap into your body fat, and you can go for 4, 5, 6 hours without even eating, no problem whatsoever, burning your body fat. So you've got to really work with someone that knows what they're doing when it comes to fixing your insulin. Because if you've got those kidney issues because your insulin's been too high too long, and you got all these junk misfolded proteins, you got toxic fats inside the cell, that needs to be attenuated and detoxed. Now, one thing that has been shown in the scientific literature to reduce endoplasmic reticulum stress is beta-hydroxybutyrate. So what's that? When you get into a state of ketosis, it ameliorates endoplasmic reticulum. So it's a signaling molecule, and it's also lowering beta-hydroxybutyrate, NLRP3 inflammasomes throughout the entire body. So gut issues, all of those issues. So it's a great place. It's a therapeutic place to heal yourself. So you got to do this right. So the way that this is how I do it. So my first meal of the day is at 2 p.m. and it's big. Okay? And the second meal is at 6 p.m. and it's a bit smaller. So when I wake up in the morning, I'm increasing autophagy. So I hydrate with electrolytes, first meal of the day, and I'm setting my circadian rhythm by getting a healthy dose of the sun before it reaches UVA. And I've done other videos here on YouTube about that. If they're not linked below, drop a comment below and I'll point you to them. And then as the sun is setting, you go out and get another 5 minutes of the sun, and that's going to tell your brain to start releasing melatonin. But you've also got to make sure that your lights aren't too bright at nighttime. You got blue blockers on, because that's going to suppress melatonin release by up to 80%. Right? And you're missing out on the antioxidant effects of melatonin at nighttime, and you can't sleep deeply. So you wake up fatigued, and you get cravings, and you eat the wrong foods full of chemicals and shit like that, and you're dragging your feet throughout the day. So that's another thing that you can do. Now, what I'm going to talk about, step number 3 next week, is your plasma membrane, because your plasma membrane, it's got transporters for magnesium. So we're talking about getting the magnesium into the cell. And there's a pretty simple plan to fix all of that. So you got to make sure you're eating the right foods to facilitate all that. And I'm going to talk about that on the call next week. And we'll talk about one of them, which is phosphatidylinositol. And right here supports insulin receptor sensitivity, phosphatidylinositol. And if you don't get enough inositol, then you can't have insulin sensitivity. It's also a cell signaling hub. It helps magnesium go into the cell, brain synaptic signaling, which is really important for brain function, membrane trafficking for hormones like LH into the ball sac to make testosterone, immune modulation, cytoskeleton anchoring, so that's the structure inside your cells, super important, testosterone and thyroid signaling, steroidogenic enzymes, NADPH. So remember we talked about NADPH and redox support for NAD+. So legends, if you like these videos, give it a like and a share if I've helped you out here. Now, if you want my help, there's information below to book a call with me if you want to get there faster and work with people that know how to get you back into the prime of your life. Do that. Just have a look in the caption below, book a call with me and I can show you how to do that. And I'll walk you through all these tests. Pretty simple stuff. Because who's got time for living life suboptimal, or God forbid, as I was 8 years ago, down here? I was in an undiagnosed autoimmune disease process. I knew I had to do something because I've got a beautiful wife and 4 kids, and I want to live a strong, energetic life full of enthusiasm and love for life. And when you get the V8 machinery fired back up, the right inputs gives you the right outputs, which gives you the right outcome for life. And it's set and forget. Once you know it, you fucking know it. You just do it every day. When you wake up in the morning, you know exactly what to do, all the way to your head. It's a pillow at nighttime. Rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. Longevity genes on, NADPH up, NAD plus up, and you're going to thrive. So that's it for today. So if you've got lots of symptoms, definitely consider working with someone. If you've got a few symptoms, stick with me here on the YouTubes, and I'll start piecing this together for you. And next week, I'll give you the other steps to get the minerals and micro minerals into the cell where they actually do work, repair, and just get you charged up and fired up for life.